Welcome everyone, nation, to another episode of the Hive Podcast. TJ Winger, joined by women's lacrosse goalkeeper Patricia Rogers. Patricia, thank you so much for taking the time to join me today.
Yeah, thank you for letting me be here.
So, Patricia, I'm so excited to talk to you. And, I kind of wanted to start with where, you're a freshman here at the University of Lynchburg. How did you first come across, the game of lacrosse? Like, what was your introduction to the sport and what made you say, hey, I can do this?
I was originally introduced through my elementary school, my gym class. They had some fiddlesticks and I started running around. And after that, I went to my mom and she immediately signed me up at one of the rec centers in Forest, Virginia. And it kind of clicked for me like that.
Absolutely. So you mentioned you're from Forest, Virginia, obviously very close to Lynchburg. Was that a big part of the reason why you decided to come play at the University of Lynchburg? And what were some of those other factors, per chance, by made you want to become a Hornet?
Yeah, so once COVID hit, I realized that I wanted to stay closer to home. It was easier, and it was ultimately between like Lynchburg and Liberty. And Coach Reed actually reached out to me in high school, and during high school, no one wants to stay in their hometown. So I was originally looking elsewhere, but once everything happened, I applied to Lynchburg, and then I reached back out and I asked him, I was like, "Hey, do you want a goalie?" And it kind of just started from there.
Well, it even talked about the position of being a goalie. Was it something you always wanted to play, or was it something that you kind of had to shift around and you started somewhere else when you were younger and then kind of just made the move to becoming a keeper?
Yeah, I actually started off as an offender down by attack. And our goalie at that time wasn't very good, and I like to win. So I asked my coach during one of our big games, I was like, "Hey, do you mind if I hop in goal, try it out?" And we actually ended up winning, and I hopped in goal second half, and he kept me in the rest of the season, and I've never left the position since.
And, I love the idea of the visual of your parents just looking to try to find Patricia Rogers at the top of the formation and then not being able to find you and then looking back and seeing you between the posts. I just love to see what that moment was in their eyes. So talking about, being a goalie, and obviously we mentioned you're a freshman here at the University of Lynchburg and you're a regular starter for the team. So that is obviously something that comes with a lot of added pressure on top of, the transition from high school to college. So this is kind of a two-part question. One, how's year one at Lynchburg going? Let's start there. And then secondly, how has that process of being a student athlete and that added, workload and pressure, have you been able to handle all that?
Well, since I live so close, I'm a commuter student, one of the first Coach Reed has had on the team. And I get a bunch of questions, especially from like coaching staff or meetings, like, "Hey, how's it going? Like, is it difficult? Like, can you like handle the pressures of being a commuter student and like coming back to school for practice every day?" And honestly, it isn't tough. I like coming home. I like being able to like rewind and kind of take a step back from athletics and academics and just like relax and focus on myself a little bit. But I 100% enjoyed my time at Lynchburg. I was looking for a small school, and Lynchburg definitely fit the bill. They have the majors I wanted, and they have their teachers, the professors are amazing. They're helping me like one-on-one stuff. And I've really enjoyed my time so far, and I can't wait to see, what happens when I continue through my major and, get my degree. I'm just really excited to see what happens next.
No doubt about that. And so talking about what you get to face day in and day out at practice, I think this is kind of the most intriguing element to maybe being a student athlete is what your ecosystem around you looks like. And day in and day out, the shots you get to face are against Nikki Santor, who had 40 goals last year, top 10 in the conference. Leah Dumas, who's a threat to score from just about anywhere at any time. Dara Gregory, who lives behind the net and is really good at it. Michelle Perkins, same, credit can be given to her. And that's just, 4 players out of a really well-balanced attack. Getting to go against that day in and day out in practice, how has that made you better as a keeper?
It's definitely been a challenge. They're great players, and they challenge me every day. It's their step up from what I've seen in high school, even in travel. Their movement helps me with my tracking and my placement in goal. And I've definitely seen improvement from the fall just working with these players. I mean, same can be said on defense. I haven't really been on a team with such a strong line, and it's really helpful in like directing. We kind of have I call it like a hive mind. Like I don't have to tell them where to go; they know. And that experience on the field, especially as a starting goalie, a lot of the pressure is taken off, and that really helps my how I play in the game.
And taking that point and running with it, talking about that relationship with your backline defenders, Jordan Nilsson, been great to see her healthy this year. Kaylin Satterfield, Micah Slacum, shout out to Micah. How about the steal and score last week against Roanoke? Not often we get to see defenders get into the offensive mix, but that was an awesome moment in that game. But we had talked about your trip down to Florida. The results might not have been there, but it allowed you guys to bond and kind of gain that Hive mindset. Talk to me about what that process has been like and how that maybe has made your life between the posts a little easier.
Yeah, 100%. We went down to Florida. We didn't see the results we wanted, but our chemistry on the field definitely improved. Definitely on defense and offense. Our transitions are getting so much better throughout the season. Working with Micah, Maddie, Jordan, they're amazing players. They help me so much in goal. They take a lot of direction, which normally you see from the goalie, but having that added pressure taken off really helps. And they're just amazing. Honestly, I've never seen any kind of defense like that. And they prove it every time they're on the field. I mean, sometimes the game will be 90% on defense, and they never give up. They're in the game the entire time, and their stamina and their work ethic is incredible. And just being able to play with them is honestly such a blessing.
Without a doubt. So it's kind of one of those gives and takes where the game moves a lot faster, and that may make it a little harder against players like a Nikki Santora day in and day out, and that's the shot you're facing. But Jordan Nelson, probably a little step up from what you might have had maybe in high school or anything like that. No disrespect to those players, but it all takes a step forward on both ends of the field. So it's really interesting to see how that that process affects you between the posts. And something else I wanted to talk to you about. I feel like, especially in lacrosse, confidence has got to be something you have to have. That got to be trait number one to me, because you look at solid keepers, men's, women's lacrosse, whatever, 50% is about that threshold where you're like, okay, this person's a solid keeper. And then once you get up above that, it's like, okay, this person's really, really good. But even just saying that, it's like, okay, well, half the time you're going to get beaten. How do you keep your head held high and keep your confidence up so that way next shot, I'm snagging that one?
Yeah, no, being a goalie isn't just physical play. It's definitely a mental game as well. And that's something you have to train. I grew up playing a goalie, so having to go through those tough spots of transitioning from middle school play to high school and travel ball, that's something you have to keep in mind, because there's so much pressure, and you might not see that in the field, but off the field, it's important to talk to defense, talk to offense, keep communication going with your coaches, with other players. And like you said, confidence is key. If you don't go into a game with confidence, how you play isn't going to show who you are, how you can actually play in a game. And I mean, working with Coach Reed, he always tells us keep a goal in mind when you go into practice, when you go into game. And personally, my goal is I want a 50% save rate in every game, and I work towards that. And even if we lose, I know if I hit 50% or I go over 50%, I know I put my best in that game, and I always have room to improve. I go back, watch film, watch what I missed. Maybe I missed a clear or just a bad pass, and that's something I want to work on in the next practice, the next individual I have with my coaches. And I'm really lucky to have the coaches I have now, because Coach Eric, Coach Aaron, Reed, they each instill this mentality into us that we need to have energy, we need to keep the morale up. And specifically with me, I'll talk with Coach Eric, and he's just it's one goal. It's one goal you let in. You need to get that out of your head and focus on the next one coming at you. Or if I make a bad clear, he's forget about it. You know what to do next time. You got this.
And that mindset, and that maybe it's similar to the theory of 1%, trying to get a little bit better across the board day in and day out. And that might lead us into the answer for the next question, the last question I wanted to ask you. So we've talked about you, freshman, starting. That's awesome. What everybody listening to this podcast is wanting to know is, what are the goals for the year? Not only for you personally, you talked about that 50% save mark. I think that's an awesome bar to hit, but for the team, what do you think this team's able to accomplish, and what are overall the goals throughout the rest of the season? Because seeing you coming up tonight by the time people are listening to this, and then transitioning pretty much full-time into ODAC play, which one of the best conferences in the Division III ranks. So what are some goals for you, but also for the team?
I think for everyone, we want to win, but overall, that's not the most important thing. I think everyone wants to see growth throughout the season. I mean, we want to have a chance at the ODACs. We would love to go ring the bell at the end of the season. But in the end, I think for us, it's definitely growing as a team and growing individually, because we all know we have the material as a team to be great. It's just if we each put in 110%. Like, we know we're going to get there. So growing together, growing as a team, just not in play, but as a family, we know we can accomplish anything this season.
Absolutely. Patricia, thank you so much for joining me. Any final thoughts?
Support us against CNU Wednesday night. It's going to be a really good game, home. So we want to see some fans there.
Awesome. Patricia, thank you again. That's going to do it for this episode of the Hive Podcast. For Patricia Rogers, my name is CJ Wigger. And until next week, we have a new episode for you. We are signing off.